Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. It is an honor to be here, especially to be among renowned leaders like we have on stage. I believe that you've heard several times the theme of our conference today, From Vision to Victory. And I'm sure that it resonates with you in one way or the other. Permit us to have these very distinguished gentlemen only on stage. I know that many of you would like to have this opportunity, but I believe they will speak your mind. So for now, please, leaders, pardon me. I'm like the driver. So I'm going to drive this car the way I like. Do we agree?
I agree.
Fantastic. Okay, so for the first round, I have the general questions for all of you, and you can respond each one after the other, right? Okay, then after that, I have a specific question. So I'm representing everyone here. I hope I can ask them what they want to hear from you. Okay, so my first question to all the panelists is, in one sentence, how would you describe transformational leadership in Africa today? Let me start from you, Chief. Let me call you Chief Omondi.
Excellent. Good afternoon. Chooks, I think it's always not very good to be the one to start, but sometimes it's also very good.
You look like who can start. You look like a chairman.
Thank you very much. So, ladies and gentlemen, I've been asked to define or give a meaning of transformative leadership. I want to use 3 pillars for that meaning. Transformative leadership is where a leader, that is you and I, inspire. That is a very core component. Motivate and empower those that are led. And that is done so that they can exceedingly perform, which means they must perform beyond the target towards a common vision. And most of the time, it is characterized by charisma. So you have to influence those you are leading, motivate them, and use intellectual capacity to bring out innovation and creativity. That means you have to do things different from the way others know that they're supposed to be done.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. In fact, I like his very calm demeanor. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Over to you, sir.
Thank you very much. If you like calm demeanors, you're going to like me. I think if I was to describe the state of Africa's transitional leadership currently in a sentence, it's going to be more than one sentence, but I think it's wanting. And from my perspective, having been fortunate enough to be a child of Africa who's had the good benefit of traveling the world, working overseas, it's about changing the culture of the leadership. We're still in a mindset where we're very hierarchical, and we look to the West, we look to the North for guidance on a lot of things. When I came home 4 years ago now to lead Knight Frank, I saw so much potential and so much raw talent that just didn't have their self-belief. So changing that mindset of we can actually do stuff rather than having to look to other people to guide us is a personal passion project of mine and something I try to do across the team. So I think the state of our transition leadership is lacking that mindset of culture change from my perspective.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mark. That's your points are well noted. Okay, let us go to Dr. Kenneth Matiba.
Thank you. First of all, allow me to welcome you to Kenya.
Thank you.
And Kenyans in the room, hi. Thank you very much. So I think when we're talking about transformational leadership, it is a combination of a visionary approach to strategic approaches. And being Africans, I think it is important for us to recognize the Ubuntu principles. The Ubuntu principles are around harmony, respect, and communal success. And it is pegged on issues of humanity, interdependence, and servanthood. So in the African context, when you're talking about a transformative leader, you want to see how the Ubuntu principles then are escalated to the success of the society. So what you're looking at is empowerment, success, and acceptability of the people that you lead. Because a leader running alone is like a dead man running alone. So if you're not creating impact, then you are not transformational. If you're not moving with the people that you lead, then you are not transformational. And in conclusion, therefore, I would say that a transformative leader is a leader that entrenches the Ubuntu principles and moves and elevates the society to the highest level through prosperity and impact.
Let's give a round of applause for Dr. Matiba. That is well said. Thank you so much. Okay, let's go to you, Dr. Omoele.
Thank you. Good afternoon, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. We talk of transformational leadership in Africa. I may not have the capacity to put it in the proper perspective. However, I will give it a literary meaning. When you talk of transformational leadership, it is the capacity, the ability to drive the ideals and vision of a society, of a country, to a state that is desired by the country. And this can only be achieved when you are able to carry or achieve this through generations. To be a transformational leader, it is not something that is achievable overnight. The different generations, the future generations, the coming generation, the next generation, all these generations must be carried along. Otherwise, you might be having a wasted effort. Let me give a practical example. We have a situation now between Generation Z, Generation X, Y, Y1, Y2, Y3. And there is this competition between all of them. The Gen Z are complaining of poor leadership. Those in Generation X are also complaining of not being followed or not being not having the capacity to implement what is being provided by Gen Z. You see the conflict. We also have another generation called the Alpha generation that is said to be the coming generation. These ones, we don't even know where or how we are going to provide a leadership that will take Africa to the desired land. And that is why I said I may not have the capacity. Again, when you look at Africa as it is, the type of leadership that will drive Africa or take Africa to the desired position is beyond rhetorics. We need to start from this young generation, imbibe the culture of leadership, which is the capacity to drive the ideal and the vision to the desired land. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Omoele. I am happy that you are the one that referred to Gen Zs. Okay, you are HR professional, so yeah, I believe it's your feed because I've been having running battle with my Gen Z staffs. It's not been easy. Okay, thank you so much. Okay, let me start with you again, Chief. I believe that leadership plays a critical role when it comes to public health and the outcomes across Africa. So your own opinion, being in your field, how is effective leadership transforming nutritional system and strengthening professional practice in Kenya and Africa at large?
Thank you, Chooks. And ladies and gentlemen, I think that's a tough question because it's very specific. For Kenya, I would rather look at it from Kenya and then proceed to Africa, because we are looking at how can Africa become the Africa we want. I will start with the Kenya perspective. Now, I'm a nutritionist by profession, public health nutritionist.
Well-known nutritionist.
I'm also the CEO and the first CEO for Kenya Nutritionists and Dietitians Institute. And I want to say that in Kenya, we are the only one in the world with an act of parliament that regulates the profession of nutrition and dietetics.
Let's give a round of applause, please.
And this act is very unique because it has both the service end and the regulatory arm. So in the field of public health nutrition, we have seen leadership that we, I call it we because we are a team, move with in Kenya, which has transformed Kenyan nutrition systems in 3 forms. The first form is that before, there was no recognition of nutrition in the health sector, and founding on the principle that 70% of diseases have their roots from nutrition. In fact, with effective nutrition, we don't need to visit health facilities. We made it an affirmative approach to ensure that we tackle the health systems by defining norms and standards, where we prescribe the minimum prescribed number of nutritionists trained per health facility for grading systems. And that has been successful, though it is being adopted at a slower rate. But you will now walk into any facility and find nutritionists in that system. Number 2, we have also tried very much to move beyond Kenya.
Planning or lack thereof. It's if we go to China, and like Mr. Ogata was talking about earlier, we can take a lot from the Chinese case study vis-a-vis planning our infrastructure before we populate areas, which is something we're typically not very good at across the continent. That said, we have a long way to go from a development perspective in real estate. If we look at the amount of grade A, truly international quality investable assets across the continent, there aren't that many. And I'll exclude South Africa, potentially Egypt from that, because they're very unique markets, particularly South Africa. They're very developed, but in that void in SSA between Egypt and South Africa, we have so few, assets. Even if you go to Lagos or Abuja or Accra, Nairobi, Dar, wherever it is on the continent, there's so few assets or portfolios of assets that investors from elsewhere in the world will look at. And something that the rest of the world has done right is build up scale of quality assets that has allowed money to flow from Asia to Europe to the States, from the Middle East to Europe to the States to Asia, by acquiring these large portfolios of quality assets. We're just not there yet. So if you're looking at the real estate piece in Africa and you're planning on investing in it, think about the exit. To every client I deal with, and in my personal decisions as well, I always think about, how am I going to exit this asset? I'm investing in it today, but what's going to happen in this area down the road, 5-10 years? That long-term thinking, right? But yeah, we are seeing markets like Nairobi. The new announcement, well, not new announcement, but the commencement of the massive Addis Ababa airport. It started at the beginning of this year. It's going to be the largest, busiest airport in the world when it's completed in 2030. That's their plan. Those sorts of infrastructure projects, which are part of government's responsibility, are essential to unlock all our markets, and not just from a real estate perspective, but from a development perspective as well.
Thank you so much. Well said. I especially like what you said about thinking about how to exit the property when acquiring. I personally noticed that some people think buying a piece of property is what real estate investment is about. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Knight Frank is well known. I would have asked you another question, but let me allow you rest a little. Okay, let me come to you, Dr. Antiba. So I would say I know, and I believe you know that, like you have stated earlier, strong institutions are backbone to sustainable development. And that's one thing that KISM is doing. So tell us, how is KISM shaping procurement ethics, standards, and efficiency in Kenya, and how is it influencing the broader region with its best practice?
Thank you very much for that question. I think there are a few points that we first need to put into context because KISM is a state agency domiciled within the National Treasury as the parent ministry with the role of registration, licensing, training, disciplining, and regulating all procurement professionals in Kenya. So when you mention the word procurement, I think the magnitude of resources in the continent of Africa with a global nominal GDP of about $3.6 trillion, 17% of that is expended in procurement. Kenya, with a GDP of about $124 billion US dollars, we spend about 60% through procurement. If you look at the biggest economy in Africa, that is South Africa, they spend close to $150 billion US dollars. In West Africa combined, they spend about $80 billion. And as such, it is important to build strong institutions that are able to entrench proper governance and accountability in the utilization of public resources for the benefit of the citizens. In this context, for the benefit of the people of Kenya. As such, the practitioners in the space of public procurement must be persons who are duly registered and licensed. And as a consequence, we have been deliberate as Kenya in developing the policy, legal, and institutional framework that facilitates a registration and licensing. And we are very grateful to the President, especially through the Office of the Chief of Staff and Head of Public Service, that has worked very closely with KISM in issuing directives and guidelines that facilitate registration and licensing of procurement professionals in Kenya. Today, KISM has a total community of professionals of about 28,000 professionals. And in the past 2 years, we have been very deliberate in our reform agenda because the institution before existed without an enforcement mechanism for compliance. We never did any compliance checks, no compliance audits, no disciplinary mechanism. And in the last 2 years, we have been able to build formidable alliances, working with the judiciary, working with the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission, and working with the Office of the Auditor General to operationalize the framework for compliance checks and compliance audits. As a result of that, we have seen the growth in registration and licensing by over 44%. Similarly, we never disciplined any procurement professional in Kenya for nearly 17 years. Last year, with the support of the judiciary, we have been able to build a robust framework that facilitates disciplinary mechanism, and we have been able to undertake over 156 cases which are processed in a record time, and judgments are public and published for any jurisprudential review. We had also not institutionalized capacity development. We started 2 years ago, the Kenya College of Supply Chain Management, which today has over 300 students. And in our capacity building interventions, we have been able to train over 8,200 professionals in the past 1 year alone. And it is also unique to note that the continent of Africa has benefited from in collaboration with the World Bank, where we have been able to train over 700 professionals in the last 1 year alone, benefiting 13 countries in Africa. We have also now taken and elevated the conversation in the continent when it comes to the professionalization of supply chain practice by being the country that is going to host the Pan-African Center of Supply Chain Excellence. We have acquired a parcel of land at the Kenyan coast, and we are looking for strategic partnerships with willing partners so that we can be able to make a difference. So when we come for conferences like this ones, our desire is that we come together, we get close together, and together we deliver for the benefit of the continent of Africa. And I want to believe that peer-to-peer exchange, building uniformity, because there is a gap. If you took a professional body, in this case, in Ghana, and another one in Kenya, and another one in Rwanda, you will realize there is lack of homogeneity. You don't compare efforts with efforts. And that is the conversation that we are taking forward as CISM, so that we can be able to have a uniform mechanism of developing a policy that will then enable a procurement professional trained and working in Kenya to export labor and still benefit from equal qualifications in West Africa. That way we are building a community of professionals that is able to make a difference. So I would say many things, but I think what I can be able to say is that Kenya has a lot to offer. Kenya is also looking at opportunities to learn from other African countries, and I think collectively we should be able to work together, because procurement is the pulse of the progress of any nation, and Africa has an opportunity today more than ever to come close when it comes to making that difference. I thank you.
Thank you so much. Please let's give a round of applause to Dr. Matiba. Dr. Matiba, I must assure you, your work is well known also. I remember when the board was reviewing, your activities were clear enough and well appreciated. And I like what you said. It's high time we start thinking about exporting internally within Africa. We know that any solution that works in Kenya will definitely work in Nigeria. African countries and their problems are almost the same. One solution that works in one place will definitely work in another place. And I like the fact that you are thinking about advancing uniformity when it comes to professionals in your field. That's very commendable. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Let me come to you now, Dr. Omoyele. Human capital remains central to African competitiveness, like has been stated by several of our speakers today. How is your organization advancing professional standards and leadership capacity across the continent?
Thank you. The Chartered Institute of Human Resource Management of Nigeria is a legally registered body that is empowered to train, to license, and also engage in human capacity development across different categories of the sectors of the economy. We are not only an institution that is legally registered and empowered to license. We are also involved in community service. We provide education to the extent that organizations are made to be aware that the major driver of any organization is the human sector. The human sector of any organization must be taken seriously. If you don't, the fact that you have human being in an organization, and of course we know they are unpredictable, they are not, you cannot, many times you cannot determine what they will do next, particularly to some of us who are employers of labor. I was just discussing with a colleague outside there, and we were looking at the different perspective of the workforce. And that takes me back to the Gen Z. And I mentioned that, you see, when you look at the structure of the workforce these days, it appears it is being dominated by the Gen Zs. And unfortunately, the Gen X, 1, 2, 3, they are supposed to provide leadership for them, are already exiting this space. And that gap is creating a lot of problem. Our institute, many times when we go for conferences, we go for seminars, we conducting induction for people, we normally address the gap between the Gen Z, because if there's no one to lay a foundation, others may not be able to follow. The categorization of Gen Z is not the problem, but there are so many factors that made them to be of concern to people. They have their own peculiarities. Sometimes
I agree with you.
they have their own peculiarities, and the peculiarities has to do with, number one, they don't want to be pushed around. They believe in the gig economy, that is working from home, contract basis. They also believe that they should be free from any idea that they seems not to understand to them is not. And as we are gathered here, if we have majority of them here, they are bored already. They are tired. because to them we are talking too much. You get it? Tell you big grammars. And unfortunately, those of us who are neither here nor there, I mean Gen X, Gen Y, and that are neither here, we are not prepared to hand over or to provide serious leadership. And when you talk of human capital, it is a very sensitive thing. These days, when you look at most of these multinational companies, they prefer to import to a country where they don't understand their culture. And Gen Zs, whether we like it or not, are the rising generations. We have the coming generation, which is the alpha generation. Those ones are just coming up. They don't know much of what we are even doing. They are still in primary school. The better generation, of course, they are just 1 year old by our own categorization. Each generation has its own peculiarity. And if you don't understand their peculiarities, you'll just be wasting your time. Again, when you look at the world globally, they share the same peculiarity. They are tech savvy, they are restless, they are creative. I won't say they are selfish, they are goal-getters, but to a large extent, if you really want to get a result that is desired, you need to involve them. They understand the terrain. They understand the street language. If, as we are seated here, they know how they communicate. All of us, as we are seated, I may not know your age, but I know you don't belong to Gen Z. So to flow with them will be a problem. You believe in due process. They don't believe in due process. They don't believe in following the norms. They want the word crazy to be exhibited all the time. And that is why many a times, some of us who are their leaders, we find it difficult to manage them. You might be talking to them, they are pressing, they communicate via tech. Most times, they're either on TikTok, WhatsApp, and see, if you want to provide a thorough leadership that is sustainable, like my gentle friend, a teacher, who just presented something on Vision to Victory. Something was omitted at that time, which was the mission. I was thinking we mentioned the mission, but in the process, mission came in out of the victory. We have a desire, an ideal situation that we desire. How do you ensure that this is being sustained? How do you ensure that this is being translated? If we don't look at the current, which is the rising generation, if you don't carry them along, we are wasting our time. We need to involve them deeply in anything that we are doing. With that, we'll be able to achieve the desired objective of transformative capital, human capital ideal. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Boyle. That was well said. I understand because, especially at this time, leadership is more challenging because of this. You have to think like you think. Sometimes you have to really try to understand them. Like you said, they are very restless. In fact, I may not be into HR, but from managing a few organizations currently, the turnover rate is very high because of the so you can get employed today and leave it today. So how is your organization, what do you intend to do? How do you intend to address especially the very, very frequent turnover rate?
So our institute, for us in our institute, our role, like I said, goes beyond teaching people, providing training program, human capacity. We also engage in we also engage in community service, We go to secondary schools to provide, ensure they have what we call club, leadership, global something, leadership fund. It's a club. We register them, we tell them how to be a leader, we tell them what is expected of a leader, we tell them, it is not when you talk of leadership. Leadership is not the act of occupying a position. It goes beyond that. It is a capacity, it is an ability to influence, to motivate. You don't have to be at the top there before you are addressed as a leader. don't have to be the CEO or say, you can even be a junior manager and you are portrayed as a leader. We go around, we engage in community services. Anytime we have the opportunity of talking about what is important to an employee, which is not necessarily money alone. Most of these high labor turnover we experience, that is occasioned by the issue of money or the issue of seeking greener pasture. I think it's just the nature of the generation. They want to explore. Like I said, they don't joke with anything. If you look at the gig economy, GIG economy, which is dominated by this generation, you hardly find anyone you can hold on ground. They believe in contract work. They believe in, I think it has to do with a perspective that they have been imbibed with from childhood. The parents, because we cannot address a problem if you don't know the cause. A lot of factors are responsible for the perception of the Gen Zs. A lot. And when you talk of a Gen Z, there are two categories. There are those who are above their age, who see reason like them. We have people like that. Well above 60, they think like Gen Zs. They behave like Gen Zs. We also have people who can be categorized as Gen Z on the basis of their age. If you fall to the first category, that's a problem. The problem is that you may not be able to provide expected leadership because we live in a competitive world, very dynamic, highly unpredictable. If you look at what we are experiencing in the last 2 months now, if you are not a visionary leader who can think without the box, you might find it difficult to manage your people. You have rising cost of production. Salary is not enough. Everybody is engaged in moonlighting, that is doing additional work legally or illegally to add to your income. And this will affect productivity. So to tame labor turnover in most organizations is not something that we just address here. Our institute, Chartered Institute of Human Resource Management, is making serious effort to ensure that we cover the whole of our country. We have been to about 5 states where most of their secondary schools there, we have our presence physically active, where we have clubs that are registered, where we teach people how to be a leader with a vision, a charismatic leader, a transformational leader, and all what's not. But all of us cannot constitute all the types of leadership or traits expected. You might be charismatic because of your nature. I might not be. I might be someone who has a vision. My friend here may not be. He might be someone who's transformational. There are people who just give them a goal, give them target, they will carry out. There are people who will set goals, ask them to implement. They cannot achieve that. You need to identify these little peculiarities. That will go a long way in helping us. And the Institute is providing education at every opportunity, like we are gathered here. People want to hear some things that have not been mentioned. And that is the issue of Gen Z. If you go to any conference, if you are not addressed that area, you are wasting your time, particularly on HR, because they dominate the workforce now, as I speak with you, more than 80%. If you're above 60, above 50, you are not expected to be at the lower cadre of an organization. You are supposed to be at the managerial level if you have started the way. And that's why I said categorization of Gen Z is of 2 types. But those in the other side are a minority. Those who constitute the majority are below the age of 40 and 30 below. So I think by the end of 2030, we hope to have covered the whole federation, and by that we'll be able to achieve a substantial number of people becoming leaders. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ogoyemi. Your work is well documented also because we are well aware of what your institute is doing, especially across Nigeria. And I'm hoping that with this conference in Kenya, you can start going across Africa, especially your institution, you have peers in every country. So it's important that we address the problem of labor turnover and the next generation, Gen Z, across Africa, not only in Nigeria. Yes. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, there's only this here. Gentlemen, before I let you go, I just want to give you one word. I'm going to be passing that on question. Dr. Matilda, what do you call your leadership? Your word?
Thank you very much. I think, first of all, even before I respond to that question, it is good to clarify one or two comments, make one comment, if you may permit. I think the youth bulge issue, which is tied to what is talking about the Gen Z, is a global opportunity for the world to succeed. As leaders, we should not just look at the problem that the youth bulge presents, but the opportunity that it provides for the country and the world to move to the next level. The innovation and the ideas and the energy of the youth should be translated into opportunities that make sense to them for the benefit of the global community. And I think investing as a continent in deliberate empowerment opportunities for the youth is critical, whether they are through mentorship programs, whether they are through innovation hubs that we may want to create. At KISIM, we have created a graduate trainee program so that we track graduates when they leave universities into the industry, and we do employment linkages for them. We also have a very deliberate mentorship program working with the universities in that sense. So I would encourage the youths who are here not to see themselves as a problem, but to see the potential that they have and to always push and explore opportunities for personal prosperity and also for national prosperity and continental prosperity in that sense. Now, back to your question on my leadership style. I wouldn't want to describe myself because I've seen some of my staff here. But I would say my style is about involvement, and involvement. I don't believe that I need to stay long in a position, but I believe that every opportunity that I have today should be transformational, should create positive impact, and should elevate the society, so that if I was to drop dead now, there is something left behind that can encourage the person coming after me. Because life and leadership is about creating a difference, and difference is not tied to time. Difference is tied to decisions that you make when it comes to elevating and building strong institutions. In that sense, therefore, I would say I'm a transformational leader.
I agree with you. And I agree with all of this you said about the Gen Zs are no problems. But as leaders, we must begin to innovate in such a way that we can work with them. Because their styles are certainly different from old school styles. Okay. So, Mr. Mark, my last question to you, what is one personal habit that drives you to success?
I rarely abide by rules, so I'm also not going to. I'm going to jump on Dr. Mativa's bandwagon and just one last message for the public sector in the room, coming from private sector, and I've seen examples elsewhere in the world where the public sector really actively engage and learn from the best practices of the private sector. I think that's something we lack a lot of. We don't spend enough time sharing. So that's something that I urge anybody in public sector to do. Trust me, private sector is interested in efficiency and making money. So if we can work together to achieve those goals, we're definitely willing to do so. In terms of personal habits, I think I was fortunate that I went through a very strenuous, disciplined education system that involved a lot of beating. And as a result, I'm very disciplined. So I think getting up, early every day, ensuring that I have certain things during the day that I will achieve. Getting enough exercise, eating well, correctly, not well. I think those are things that you fuel your body. You need to rest your body. You need to rest your mind. Doing those things are as important as working hard. So taking care of that side of your life is just as important as your work side.
Thank you so much. Well said. Well said. Yeah, it's really very important to have a balance. I understand all of you here because leaders sometimes are working 2/7, which is not very good. But sometimes we are left with zero choices. But so we have to do what we have to do. Thank you so much. Okay, let me give you the chief again, Chief Mondi. Okay, so what is your message to the next generation of African leaders?
My message, just before I get to my message, maybe for the purposes of those new leaders that are coming up here, and they want to know what we do. Actually, we are a self-regulating parliamentary agency. And we train professionals at the university college level. Most of our universities are here today. And we also mentor professionals right from when they join the university college. So dealing with the Gen Z is a concept that we have captured, particularly with the professional association being formed at entry point. And right now we have a group of over 8,000 of our nutrition professionals in the name of Spencer that are collaborating even with other agencies from different countries like Nigeria, even the UK. And I want to say that it is possible to manage the Gen Zs when you give them their bit of what they need. Now, apart from that, we are also trained professionals just like KISS. And I would want to tell everyone that they can check our website and see all this. Now, if you see an institute that runs without government money, which is government, it is us, because we are not depending on exchequer money. In fact, many times I've been asked by Parliament, you need money, I tell them I don't need it. Because we know how to transform services without necessarily asking government for money. So one message that I would want to pass to every leader here coming up is that there's no star without a scar. So hard work and visionary, transformative habit is what can bring results in leadership. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. I must say that I appreciate all of you. From what I can capture from all this conversation, we can see that we can do a lot in our countries, in the region especially. I like what Mr. Mark said the last time. Public sector must work very closely with the private sector. I think that is where our public sectors in different countries need to have a change of attitude and innovate. Sometimes those in government do not want to even learn or listen to the professions. But you can't get it right without the professions. And hence at internally or even externally is very important to development and ensuring that services are provided at best practice levels. And I believe that all that has been said by you gentlemen shows that we need to start collaborating in Africa. We shouldn't be enemies to ourselves. We should be looking beyond our borders. If you have a system that works, think about the next neighboring country. It will definitely work there. I think you can be like Knight Frank. I know Knight Frank everywhere, and they're doing well. Thank you so much for coming. And what do we say to my panelists, ladies and gentlemen?